Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1785, written by Justalilbugboi. Bewitching Laughter, the Dark Hereafter. She has these weird notches, seizures. We have no idea what they are. They've run tests on her while it's happening. How we know it's not seizures, not electrical. But everyone is mystified. When they started, it was horrifying. She was conscious, but not her. She would randomly laugh, grab her tongue and pull it, writhe, make sounds. She's a tiny thing and kicked 2 EMTs, one across the room. She would grab me and stare at me, gripping so tight it would bruise and break skin. This is not someone who would ever fake these things. She had to quit her job because they would happen at work. She worked a job where that couldn't happen. The scariest one I remember, she went to take a bath, and an hour later, we realized the water had never poured. We went to check, and when we opened the door, it banged into something and wouldn't open. We called out to her, and she started giggling and slowly scratching her nails down the door. She was standing in front of the door, had been for most of that hour. She giggled and scratched until we managed to push her back enough to get her. But the scariest part, besides a loved one having some intense neurological condition nobody can pin down, was when we moved. See, the apartment we were in had bad vibes. I called it haunted, but clearly some bad stuff had gone down there. The door had been kicked in at some point. We found substances in the drains. The cops came by several times our first year there looking for missing people. There were a lot of strange sounds. Strange things happening unrelated to Rumi's issue. When we moved back to my house, 100% boringly non-haunted, the not seizures didn't stop. But she never again has had that other weird personality. She's either herself and aware or sorta twilight conscious. No giggling, no weird activities, no strange sounds. Everything else is exactly the same, but there's no personality changes. Besides wanting to know just what the hell is happening, please give me medical advice, it's solicited. I want to know what the hell moved into her body when she wasn't home. Case notes, file 1785, Bewitching Laughter, the Dark Hereafter. This is a dark story, and I don't know if it is her mind that is simply broken. You say that she had scans and medical tests done and they can't figure out what it is. So maybe it isn't medical. You know, I mentioned before that I don't believe that spirits and demons and so on are really malicious or there's much of a threat in that realm. But there are exceptions, and maybe this is one of them. Maybe she really is possessed by a demon. And it's not the Constantine kind of demon where it's visual. It's an essence that possesses her. It could even be a malicious or evil spirit that has somehow figured out how to inhabit her body. And that personality is in conflict with hers and sometimes merging together and driving her mad. And if you're experiencing this, maybe it's impossible to even convey what it's like. If you suddenly woke up and you were angry and you had a different personality, or maybe you were seeing things, hallucinating, would you think you're being possessed, even knowing these stories? I probably wouldn't if it happened to me. So just not knowing what the hell is going on would add to the insanity, I think. Again, just a very sad story. I hope she's better. And moving away you say helped, which is something. Maybe the spirit is bound to a certain location and not being there loses their power. Maybe over time the spirit will fade away. If demons are just spirits that are malicious, then it would apply the same in that context. So hopefully that's the case. Case file number 1786, written by TheFourWind. A tumble and a glare in the midnight air. Circa 2007, my brother and I were heading home from a night out. We were on a freeway interchange that had a large drop-off to the right. The drop was down a hill at least 15-20 feet. In front of us, a black SUV started spinning out of control and tumbled off the side. "Pull over," I shouted to my brother. "No way, we've been drinking," he replied. I convinced him whoever was in the crash was going to be really disoriented, more than likely severely injured. It was for the best someone was there to try to keep them calm, and to not move until help arrived. As soon as you see the siren lights, honk. I'll run up and we'll get out of there. My brother nodded. I flew down the hill as fast as I could. The SUV had landed on its tires. All of the glass was shattered. In the driver's seat was a man, disoriented and covered in blood. He was speaking in his native tongue. Fortunately, I knew a little bit myself. Enough to tell him an ambulance was on its way, and that he needed to stay still. He was panicking, fear-stricken. Not the kind that one experiences during a car crash. He was afraid of something else. I could see it in his eyes as they bugged out from his face. That was when I noticed the blood he was covered in was dry. "What have you done?" I asked in his language. The man just stared at me, unable to form words, but pleading with me through his eyes. "Honk, honk." I looked up to see my brother signaling me, and I saw lights in the distance. "Just stay here," I said to the man and ran back up the hill, jumped in my brother's car, and we bolted out of there. This very much reads like a made-up story, I understand. It's probably because I have a flair for the dramatic. But I swear, this truly happened to me one night in 2007, and I always think about it to this day. I'll never know the truth. What did that man do? Case notes for file 1786. A tumble and a glare in the midnight air. Not much of a glitch per se in this story, but I included it anyways because I love a good mystery, and that question is gonna gnaw at me as much as you. What the hell did this person do? How was the blood dry? Did they injure someone? Did they have someone in the back trunk that was kidnapped? Or was it actually a glitch where they had somehow experienced a lot of time in this crash period? So much so that the blood had already dried. My guess it's the former, and if so, it's kind of miraculous in a certain context, because if you were being kidnapped, you would rather take your chances in a crash and hope you can be saved by the medics and police that arrive than wherever he's taking you. If that's the case, that's a very potent silver lining in a very weird and dangerous story. Case file number 1787, written by Hank's Panky Emporium. Thwarting Doom from a Pheasant's Room. Some gals tried to kidnap me from the farm when I was a small fella. Old enough to know better, but not technically old enough to be on my own for very long. But there was an emergency at work. Mom and Dad were both called in, which was weird. Mom was a registered nurse though, so maybe they needed more hands. Dad was a general surgeon. Two gals drove up in a cute little red 4-door sedan and knocked on the front door. The house was pretty hefty. It was designed to be a bed and breakfast, but we were well outside of civilization. Most of the activity in the area was during bird hunting season, pheasants specifically. Regardless, the gals asked me to open the door so they could talk about their lord. I already went to church, but I said I couldn't open the door. Technically true, there was a thick metal door jamb set up under the handle that anchored to the floor. Got it to protect the hinges if a storm tried to blow the door open. It happened once, long story. Long story short, I wasn't letting them in and they were getting pissed. One gal kept telling me God would kill me if I didn't. I was evil, etc. While the other jogged out to the car and looked around. We had very infrequent cars drive by since we were located nearest to wetlands. But there was a thicket between the house and the road, and the driveway had a big old curve to it. But I think they were worried my parents were coming home. Both gals eventually hop in the car and drive around the property, stopping just short of entering the larger pasture to the south. Had 2 big old ponds in it, but I bet they figured the path would cut up their tires. They come back, same spiel. Open this freaking door or the devil will kill me. I was smart enough to not open the door, but not smart enough to call my parents. They buggered off. Felt like it'd taken forever, but I'm sure from start to finish it hadn't even been 10 minutes. When I told my parents later that night, when they got home, they told me to stop lying. I shrugged it off for a spell, but I'm fairly certain they had nefarious intent. Nab someone from a farmhouse? Who the hell would know where to start looking? Nearest neighbor was ages down the road, about a 4-minute drive, then another 25-ish minutes to the city limits. Humans can be the scariest creatures, no doubt about that. Case notes for file 1787, Thwarting Doom from a Pheasant's Room. It really is a case where human beings are the grand threat. Sometimes you might have a case where you're being possessed by a spirit, but that's so infrequent and so rare, per my experience finding these stories, that I don't... In raw numbers, there's so many evil human beings, and as a percentage of the whole of humanity, it's extremely tiny, but there's so many humans that it ends up that there's still, millions of really screwed up people. You say you weren't smart enough to call your parents, but at least you were smart enough not to open the door. At your age, I might have opened the door. I was very naive back then. And this had to be planned on their end. They must have been staking out the house for a long time, waiting for the parents to leave. Maybe they even somehow tricked the parents into believing there was an emergency at the hospital, and there wasn't actually. They were so far away that it would take them probably an hour to get there and an hour to come back, even if they immediately realized it was fake. Stories like this make me want to have very secure doors, yeah. And those, I don't know what they're called, but those homes where you have a door, you open, you enter the main door, and then there's still an enclosed space. And there's another door leading into the actual house, like a double door system. And that's good for weather control as well. You're not letting cold air or warm air out, so on and so forth, depending on season. I don't see homes like that anymore. I don't even know what it's called. It's like not a foyer, but a code room or a shoe room or whatever they're called. They're great for security. Open one door, not the other. I'm going to have that in my house eventually. Now time for the joke of the day. Last night, I thought my wife was watching a really scary movie because she was yelling at the TV. "Don't go in that church, fool! Run!" I asked her what she was watching. She said, "Our wedding video." Well, I guess she's unhappy in the marriage. Sign number 1. Ouch. That's kind of brutal, though. Damn.